Little girl asked, "Can you fix our door? Mommy's scared." The CEO next door showed up at midnight. The night the knock came was not loud, but it carried a weight that felt heavier than thunder. It was just past midnight, the kind of hour when the world holds its breath, when fear grows teeth in the quiet. Rain slicked the sidewalks of a modest suburban street in Ohio, streetlights glowing like tired guardians, and inside a small, aging house, a young mother sat frozen on the edge of her couch, staring at a door that would not stay shut. The latch had failed hours earlier. Every gust of wind made it shudder. Every sound outside felt like a warning. And standing beside her, barefoot on cold tile, was a little girl with wide eyes who could sense danger even if she could not name it. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment to reflect. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when people show up for each other, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are waiting to be reminded that goodness still exists. Emily Carter had never imagined her life would shrink to moments like this, counting breaths in the dark and praying that nothing pushed its way through a broken door. She was 32, a widow of circumstance rather than fate, left alone not by death but by abandonment that felt just as final. Her husband had disappeared 2 years earlier, swallowed by addiction and excuses, leaving behind unpaid bills, a house that was slowly falling apart, and a 3-year-old daughter named Lily who still believed the world was safe because her mother told her it was. Emily worked 2 jobs, one as a grocery store cashier in the mornings and another cleaning offices at night. The house they lived in had been affordable because it was old and neglected, but it was all she could manage. Repairs were luxuries she could not afford, and fear had become something she folded into her daily routine like laundry. That evening, after Emily returned from her second shift, she discovered the door problem. The wood around the frame had rotted from years of moisture, and when she tried to secure it, the latch refused to catch. She pushed furniture against it, stacking a chair and a small table, but the door still rattled with the wind. Lily watched silently, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit, sensing the tension in her mother's hands. Emily smiled through exhaustion and told her everything was fine, but when Lily asked why Mommy's hands were shaking, Emily had no answer. The truth was that fear had finally cornered her. The house next door belonged to a man Emily barely knew. She had seen him occasionally, always leaving early in the morning in tailored suits, always returning late in the evening in a sleek black car. His name was Daniel Whitmore. The neighborhood whispered it with curiosity and a hint of awe. He was the CEO of a fast-growing technology company based in Chicago, a man who had moved into the area quietly, without fanfare, seeking privacy after a very public career. To Emily, he was simply the quiet neighbor with the porch light that never seemed to go out. They had exchanged polite nods, nothing more. Asking him for help felt impossible, almost embarrassing. Their worlds seemed separated by more than a fence. As the clock crept past midnight, a sudden gust pushed the door inward just enough to send the chair scraping across the floor. Emily's heart lurched. Lily flinched, then did something Emily would never forget. The little girl took her mother's hand and led her toward the door, not with fear, but with a fragile determination that felt far older than her years. Lily had noticed the light next door, had noticed the man who sometimes waved at her from his driveway. In her small mind, safety had a shape, and it lived just beyond their fence. Emily tried to stop her, but exhaustion and desperation blurred her judgment. She wrapped Lily in a coat, slipped on her own shoes, and stepped into the rain. The walk next door felt longer than it was, each step heavy with doubt. She rehearsed apologies in her mind, prepared for rejection, prepared to be told that this was not his problem. But when Lily knocked, small knuckles tapping against a solid, secure door, the sound felt like hope knocking on a world that had forgotten them. Daniel Whitmore had been awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind restless with the familiar ache of insomnia. Success had brought him many things, but peace was not one of them. He had lost his wife 5 years earlier to a sudden illness, a loss that hollowed him out in ways no boardroom victory could fill. Work became his refuge, his excuse to avoid the quiet house that echoed with memories. When he heard the knock, his first thought was confusion. His second was concern. He opened the door to find a soaked, trembling woman and a little girl whose eyes held more courage than fear. Daniel did not ask questions right away. He noticed the broken resolve in Emily's posture, the way Lily leaned into her mother as if she were both shield and anchor. He listened as Emily struggled to explain, words spilling out in a rush of embarrassment and apology. The rain soaked into his slippers as he stepped aside, ushering them in without hesitation. In that moment, the titles that defined him outside meant nothing. He was simply a neighbor who saw fear and chose to act. Within minutes, Daniel was pulling on a jacket, grabbing tools from his garage. He walked back with them to the Carter house, rain dripping from his hair, his presence oddly calming. He examined the door, the rotting frame, the compromised lock. It was worse than Emily realized, dangerous even. Instead of fixing it temporarily, Daniel made a decision that would change all of their lives. He reinforced the frame, replaced the latch with one he had spare, and secured the hinges. The work took over an hour, rain soaking through his clothes, but he did not stop until the door stood firm, solid, unmoving against the wind. As Daniel worked, Lily sat on the stairs, watching him with quiet fascination. To her, he looked like a hero from her picture books, not because he was rich or important, but because he showed up when her world felt scary. Emily watched too, tears mixing with rain, overwhelmed by gratitude and disbelief. No one had helped her like this in years. She had learned to survive by expecting nothing. This kindness felt almost unreal. When the door was finally secure, Daniel did not leave right away. He checked the windows, the back entrance, making sure everything was safe. He spoke gently, reassuringly, not with promises he could not keep, but with actions that spoke louder than words. Before he left, he gave Emily his phone number and told her to call if anything ever felt wrong again. He meant it. Over the following weeks, small changes began to ripple through Emily's life. Daniel arranged for a contractor to assess the house, quietly covering the cost of essential repairs without making it feel like charity. He framed it as an investment in the neighborhood, but Emily knew the truth. The house became safer, warmer. For the first time since moving in, Emily slept through the night without jolting awake at every sound. Daniel's presence also changed in subtle ways. He started coming home earlier, spending time on his porch in the evenings. Lily waved to him every day, her laughter carrying across the yard. Emily found herself smiling more, a cautious hope taking root where fear once lived. They talked occasionally, about ordinary things. Daniel spoke of his wife, of the silence that followed her absence. Emily spoke of survival, of learning to be strong when there was no other choice. They did not rush anything. Healing rarely does. What Emily did not know was how much that midnight knock had affected Daniel. Fixing the door had done something inside him too. It reminded him that his hands could build, not just sign contracts. That his presence could matter in simple, profound ways. He began volunteering more, quietly funding programs for housing safety, using his influence to protect families like Emily's who lived one broken lock away from fear. The success he once chased now felt empty without purpose. Purpose, he realized, had been standing in the rain on his doorstep. Months later, on a calm spring evening, Emily stood in her kitchen watching Lily draw at the table, sunlight warming the room. The door stood solid behind her, a symbol of more than security. It represented the moment her life stopped shrinking and began expanding again. She had saved enough to reduce her night shifts. She laughed more easily. Fear no longer ruled her nights. As the story draws close to its end, take a moment with us. If this journey of quiet courage and unexpected kindness has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this live because of viewers like you who believe empathy still matters. Just before we close, we have one special request. The summer after the door was fixed did not arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, the way healing often does, with small, almost unnoticeable changes that only made sense when Emily looked back. The nights grew warmer, the rain less frequent, and the fear that once sat in her chest like a stone slowly loosened its grip. She still checked the lock before bed, still listened for unfamiliar sounds, but the panic was gone. The door held firm, and so did something inside her. Daniel Whitmore became part of their everyday landscape, not in a dramatic or intrusive way, but in the gentle manner of someone who understood boundaries because he had lived too long inside his own solitude. Some mornings Emily would see him kneeling in his garden before work, sleeves rolled up, hands in the dirt like a man trying to ground himself in something real before the world demanded him again. Lily waved every single time, her small arm swinging with enthusiasm, and Daniel never failed to wave back, a smile breaking through his usually composed expression. For Lily, Daniel was not a CEO or a powerful man. He was the neighbor who fixed the door, the tall figure who listened when she talked about her drawings, the man who once crouched down on the sidewalk to admire a chalk masterpiece she had poured her entire heart into. Children had a way of stripping people down to who they truly were, and around Lily, Daniel felt lighter, less burdened by the invisible weight he carried. Emily noticed changes in herself too. She began cooking real meals again instead of relying on whatever was fastest and cheapest. She planted flowers in the small patch of dirt near the front steps, hands trembling at first as if she didn't trust beauty to stay. When the flowers bloomed, she cried quietly in the kitchen, overwhelmed by how something so simple could feel like proof that life could still grow where it once felt barren. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft shades of orange and gold, Daniel walked over holding a small box. He didn't announce himself loudly, just cleared his throat gently, giving Emily time to prepare herself. Inside the box was a sturdy new smoke detector and a carbon monoxide alarm. He explained, carefully and respectfully, that safety mattered, that these things saved lives. Emily thanked him, her voice catching, and for the first time she didn't feel ashamed accepting help. It no longer felt like weakness. It felt like community. What Emily didn't see was the internal battle Daniel was fighting. Being close to them stirred emotions he had buried under years of work and isolation. Lily's laughter echoed too closely to memories of the child he and his wife had once hoped to have. Emily's quiet resilience reminded him of the strength his wife had shown during her illness, facing each day with grace even as her body failed her. Some nights, after returning to his empty house, Daniel sat alone in the dark, allowing himself to grieve not just what he had lost, but what he had been too afraid to want again. The turning point came on an ordinary afternoon that became extraordinary by accident. Emily was late picking Lily up from preschool. A sudden shift at the grocery store had delayed her, and panic surged when she realized the time. She called the school in a rush, apologizing breathlessly, explaining she was on her way. When she arrived, Lily was sitting calmly on a bench outside, swinging her legs, Daniel beside her. He had been driving past when he noticed Lily standing with a teacher near the gate. Recognizing her immediately, he stopped without thinking. He didn't overstep. He waited until the teacher confirmed everything was appropriate, then sat with Lily, telling her a simple story about a brave rabbit who wasn't afraid of the dark. Lily listened, unafraid, because she trusted him completely. Emily rushed toward them, heart pounding, tears already forming before she reached them. Relief crashed into her so hard her knees nearly buckled. Daniel stood up slowly, making sure Lily ran into her mother's arms first. There was no judgment in his eyes, no silent criticism, only understanding. He told Emily everything was fine, that Lily had been brave, that these things happened. That kindness, offered without condition, settled something deep inside Emily. From that day on, the unspoken distance between them softened. They still moved carefully, both carrying histories that had taught them to be cautious, but trust began weaving itself into their interactions. They shared more of their lives, piece by piece. Emily spoke about her dreams before everything fell apart, about wanting to study nursing, about how life had narrowed into survival mode. Daniel spoke about the pressure of leadership, about loneliness disguised as success, about how grief had taught him to avoid attachment because losing hurt too much. Autumn arrived with crisp air and falling leaves, and with it came another test. One evening, Emily received a call from her landlord informing her that the property taxes had increased. The rent would be going up significantly. The words landed like a blow. She sat at the kitchen table long after Lily fell asleep, staring at numbers that didn't add up, fear creeping back in familiar waves. She could barely manage now. An increase would break her. Daniel noticed the light still on late that night and sensed something was wrong. He didn't intrude immediately, but the next day he gently asked if everything was okay. Emily tried to brush it off, but exhaustion betrayed her. She broke down, the weight of years of struggle spilling out all at once. Daniel listened quietly, hands folded, letting her speak without interruption. What he did next was careful, thoughtful, and rooted in respect. He didn't offer to pay her rent outright. Instead, he connected her with a housing assistance program his company supported, one designed to help single parents stabilize without stripping them of dignity. He also arranged for flexible work hours at one of his company's community offices, offering Emily a part-time administrative role that paid more than her second job and allowed her evenings with Lily. Emily hesitated at first, afraid of dependency, afraid of hope. But Daniel reminded her that accepting an opportunity was not the same as surrendering her independence. It was building a bridge, not a crutch. With shaking hands, she accepted. The new job changed everything. Emily discovered she was capable, intelligent, and respected. Her confidence grew with each passing week. She enrolled in night classes, slowly working toward her nursing certification, studying after Lily fell asleep. The future no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a path. Daniel watched these changes with quiet pride. He never took credit, never made himself the center of her progress. He understood that true help empowered rather than overshadowed. And somewhere along the way, affection grew, subtle and patient, born not from rescue but from mutual respect. One cold winter evening, nearly a year after the midnight knock, the neighborhood lost power during a storm. The wind howled, snow pressing against windows, but inside Emily's house, candles glowed warmly. Daniel joined them, bringing extra blankets and food. The three of them sat together, telling stories, laughing softly, the storm outside unable to touch the safety they had built inside. As Lily fell asleep on the couch between them, Emily looked at Daniel and realized something had changed irreversibly. The fear that once defined her life was gone. In its place was trust, not just in Daniel, but in herself. Daniel, too, felt the shift, a quiet understanding that his heart had found its way back into the world. Spring came again, completing a full circle. The flowers Emily had planted returned, stronger than before. Lily started kindergarten, confident and joyful. Emily passed another exam, one step closer to her dream. Daniel stood nearby, steady and present, no longer hiding from connection. Their story did not end with a dramatic declaration or a perfect resolution. It continued in everyday moments, shared meals, quiet conversations, and mutual support. What began as fear at midnight became a life rebuilt in daylight. If this continuation of their journey moved you, reminded you of the power of showing up, please take a moment now to like, share, and subscribe. And before you go, leave a comment telling us what part of this story stayed with you the most. Because sometimes, the smallest knock in the darkest hour doesn't just fix a door. It opens a future.